There's a bit of coaching, there's a bit of sometimes booting it, and there's quite a bit of cosmology, because I do love what is above us, and I do love the forces of the earth and the universe. So I kind of, and they're really just a segue to get people to just open a little bit more, you know, stop being so tightly resistant and just kind of flow out the door a little bit more, rather than, or flow out of the spiritual closet, as I like to say.
Oh, see, that's great. So I know there might be people who are watching going, oh, okay, she's one of those woo-woo people. How do you deal with that kind of comment?
Well, I think I'm lucky, because as I said, I am woo adjacent, and I do have a law degree, and I did spend some time at university. So, you know, I do have a logical brain, and I think that's really important. It's not just about being this free spirit. We live in a practical world, we have a physical world, and it is only the 1%. The rest, the universals, are 99%. But we do need, whatever it is that we're doing, we need to base it in this time, space, reality. We need to connect with others and make it easy for them. But what I really try and do is just to help others to see that they're more than just the person who they think they are.
And I know from having talked, it's such a great discussion. I know, having talked with you, that a lot of the work that you do, especially because you have a hypnotherapy background as well, is looking at science. It's not just the woo. I know you said you're woo adjacent, but it's not just that. It's the importance of that scientific background in the data. We all know we're stressed. We know the impact of that. It's becoming increasingly more, or the topic is becoming more vocal. People are talking about their stress levels and talking about the importance of quiet and slowing their mind, that practice of hypnotherapy or meditation, mindfulness even. Does that form a lot of the work that you're doing? Because you are dealing with quite often entrepreneurs and very busy business people. Is that the sort of work you're moving into with them?
Yeah, well, entrepreneurs and business people probably need it the most, because if you have a lot of responsibility and responsibilities, and you have people that you look after, so whether that's a tribe, a family, or, you know, wider than that, a lot of the time we're working with these, as we're talking, this is called beta, and it's a very fast speed of our brain, and it works with our logical mind, the left side. And we don't often allow ourselves to to flow and to be open and to be imaginative and creative, even though our imagination runs our body. But it's about the balance of that. So I think when you can explain the way the brainwaves work, it helps people to say that it helps people to feel comfortable as to why they should slow down. Really, all you have to say to yourself is, it's time to slow down. I need to go for a walk. I need to take a breath. I need to relax, to dance, to move. All of this is it's all very natural. There's nothing kind of spooky or woo-woo about it.
It is science, really, isn't it?
Well, it's just we don't do it. We just don't follow our own natural rhythms. We cram ourselves into busy routines. We take a lot of responsibility.
We're overstimulated often.
Overstimulated. Who doesn't take their phone to the bedroom?
Guilty.
Or their computer, and will binge watch Netflix. So we're just constantly bombarded by stimuli.
And of course that overstimulates the brain, it overstimulates your all your systems as well, adrenal system as an example. And we can see the impact of that in society. More people are struggling with mental health, mental well-being, adrenal fatigue, depression. Do you think, and this is a very loaded question, I am putting you on the spot, do you think slowing down and mindfulness is perhaps a positive step in the right direction to help those conditions or situations?
Absolutely. And I think the only thing I'd add to the mindfulness is the heartfulness, because the mind has the thoughts, the heart stores our experience and our emotions. And it's combining the two.
That's delicious. That's what Oprah would call a tweetable moment, right?
Well, also the science, because you have neurons in your heart. And people don't realise that. It's actually 150 times more powerful than your brain. So even if you can just a practical thing, when you're thinking these stress thoughts, which are largely recycled from the day before and the day before and the day before. If you just think to yourself, where am I feeling these busy thoughts? And if you then think, okay, I'm feeling them here, and then if you go, no, where do I want to be feeling myself? See the shift that happens? 2 people, it happens. If one person is being heart-centered, heart-mind coherent, it actually helps the whole group, or it helps the exchange. So if you just think to yourself, how do I slow down? What are the thoughts that feel good rather than busy or trying to solve something or trying to force something?
Gee, even the sound of your voice, I can feel myself calming down. Yeah, there you go. And I know there are people watching. By the way, as you're watching, if you've got any questions at all, I can see you all on the feed today. If you've got any questions, please feel free to, I've got to make sure I've got my right camera. Please feel free to send through some questions while you're watching. I can see you all sneakily watching there. If you're struggling with stress, if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed right now, you are not alone. We're all like that. It's been a busy few months, and I know a lot of people are feeling quite fatigued. At the moment, this is your opportunity to speak to an expert. So send your questions and say hello. That's what today's chat is all about. So coming back to you, Carmelle, I have to ask you a question. How did you get into doing this work? I know you were going to ask me a question. We'll come back to it. How did you get into doing this work?
Well, I got into it because I had to. So like most people, you reach a point in your life where you either take on too much and you have the universe or what life forces you into a situation where you have to become quiet and still. So for a lot of people that's a health issue. Some people it is a divorce. Some people it is loss of all their resources, failure in a business. So I was definitely in a divorce situation, and I lived apart from my husband, who I've been with for a long time, with 3 kids together. So we were apart for 3 years. And I was forced into taking responsibility for my own thoughts and my own feelings. And I like to think I was dragged kicking and screaming into that process. Because if you're going really, that's the thing, you know how when you're going super fast, you don't have to think about anything or you don't have to feel anything. You're just in this everyday mode, and most of us are in it. There is you don't have to face any fears. You don't have to be uncomfortable. You don't actually have to say, no, it's just the way I think about this situation. It's not that person who is doing that to me. It's life that's doing that to me. So I was forced into it, and I became very slow. Like, I did an enormous amount of meditation. And through that just worked out that there was a way of doing it that meant you didn't have to spend 2 hours a day meditating, because that's how long I had to do a lot of healing.
Wow.
A lot.
So I know there's a lot of people who, because I remember starting to meditate in my late teens, early 20s, and read a lot about it, but I know there's a lot of people who don't understand or have never experienced the concept of meditation. They know it's beneficial for well-being, but don't necessarily know, how do you do meditation?
And I get a lot of that. People say, I don't have time, that's number one, and I can't shut down my conscious mind. So the conscious mind is how we run around with our everyday. Well, we run around with our whole mind. It's not separate, but it's just that we have kind of compartmentalised how we do different things. So it's actually just allowing yourself to get into that slower pulse. So you can do it really easy just by breathing, taking a breath like right from the ground. Anyone can do that. And then exhale all the way out, carry on. You've still got some stale air, and then you push it out.
Yes, I did, you're right.
So that is one of the easiest ways. Closing your eyes. If you close your eyes, you immediately take your brainwaves into alpha, because you shut out all of the stimulation. So we're getting, I think it's 11 million bits of data per second.
By Jingoes.
And 10 million is visual. So as soon as you close your eyes, there's peace.
You're starting to defrag already, yeah.
So people meditate when they're asleep. particularly if it's good sleep. People, wherever you go to get quieter and to come within and to block out all the stimulation, you're actually meditating.
Wow.
So, but it's just about doing that consistently and in a way that kind of clears your mind so that all of your mind and all of your heart can work, and that takes a little bit of it's just practice. It's having a way in and then a little bit of practice.
So where do you sit when it comes to, I've done over the years a lot of, I started out doing that sort of practice and then loved the ease of a guided meditation, and I'm quite lazy now, so when I meditate, which I do devote practice or time to it every day, usually before I go to sleep, I'll pop on a guided meditation. Where do you sit when it comes to guided versus self-driven meditation?
So guided meditations are hypnosis, and not so, well, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, so you have to accept somebody else's voice and their direction. But in actual fact, true meditation is just quieting down your conscious mind and then observing your thoughts and yourself separate. Whereas when you've got something else playing, I'd say to drop the guided meditations, because if you can learn to do this yourself, what you start to see is actually how much power you have, number one. And number two is how you can shift and change and play with your own thoughts, because most of our thoughts are borrowed from somebody else, mostly our parents or our families. 0 to 7, our brains are in theta and we just soak up everything.
That's right, yes.
So that you're not even your own thoughts, not even your own programs, the society you live in, your culture, your upbringing, your political inclination, all of it's borrowed.
Oh goodness, makes a lot of sense knowing my family, yep.
All of it is borrowed. And so when you actually start to slow down, and not with a guided meditation, because you're not allowing yourself any space to question, to observe, to self-direct, it's just so much fun. And that's why I do it. It's fun. It is empowering and a lot of fun.
So you've been working with people in that teaching space. You've got an online program which is about to launch, or is launching?
First program is about to be launched. It's exciting.
You've got a book launching in March next year, is that correct? Yeah. When do you, with all of that going on, when do you get time to devote to your daily practice? Is it you're walking the dog, where I sometimes hear from you when you're out walking the dog? How do you make that a reality for you? Because you're also doing things like today at 7 o'clock this morning, you were running a meditation group online. How do you make that work with your daily schedule? First thing, and this is the best thing with meditation, is you just resolve to meditate, or you resolve to have some quiet time, or you resolve to have theta brainwaves if you want something scientific. You resolve to be different. We're always expanding and changing and learning. You resolve to disrupt your own thinking, to be the disruptor of your own life. You resolve, you have an intention for something that you want. That's 50%, you're there. And what for you? Practice. Yeah, practice. It's like anything really. It's like learning to cook. It's exponential skills that you're adding. It's just subconscious mind. That's right. Yeah. And I learned from theatre. It's like rehearsal. It's the same thing as going through rehearsal over and over again. The performance gets into your muscle memory, so that when you come to perform, it's artistry that comes out. And I guess it's the same thing. When you're moving into that meditation space, that's your time to play and be an artist or create or allow your brain to do its magic, right? Yeah, absolutely. But a big thing for us, and this is probably as you get older and older and older, this becomes even more true after about 35, your programs are very set. And it's actually about defragging the computer. It's about we're forced to go and clean out all the junk in our houses. And the old internal spam folder. Yep, I hear you. But it's exactly the same. And if you just allow, you've got to practice. But it's easiest. You could put 3 minutes on the timer on your phone and go in. No guided meditation. Just you yourself, eyes closed. A intention to have a slower conversation with your own brainwaves, boom, 3 minutes.
every morning, and I don't believe people do not have 3 minutes to do that. So even if you started there, within 7 days, I would be very surprised if you didn't notice substantial change.
And I was going to ask you about that. When people do devote that time, like the people that you're teaching, or even in your own experience, what are people likely to experience from making that time for their mind?
So the first thing you notice is just the sense of calm, because you calm down. And if you commit to it, you calm your whole nervous system. So I think that's the number one benefit, is calm yourself down. And it's like pulling yourself out of the mainframe and just taking a wee break. But there's something about not thinking about it it makes you feel really good. That's the other motivation for doing it. But you basically just commit to that practice, and it actually becomes very easy. It'll happen way faster than you realise, because feeling good and slowing down, relaxing and giving yourself joy or pleasure, or however you want to describe it, are natural things that we have. It's not something that we don't have. It's just that as adults we tend to think much more about what is it we're achieving, who is it we're getting to achieve for us.
Yes.
And the resistance. We have so much resistance that we build up because
of the stories and beliefs we hold on to.
Stories and beliefs, and most of it's unhelpful. Most of it isn't ours.
And I love that. I'm taking that away as another tweetable moment today. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier on in our conversation, I do want to say a shout out to everybody watching, because I can see people on the stream. Yeah, there's people watching, and it's great to have you here. Before we jump into the next part of the conversation, I did want to do a shout out, and I'm going to go to my main camera over here. Quick shout out, if you want to know more about the great work that Carmelle is doing, you can actually head to her website, manifestersunite.com. There's some great content on there. There's some downloads. I've signed up for the download, and she runs meditation groups online. She's got her online programs launching very shortly. You can sign up for the pre-release information about her book coming out very soon as well. So manifestersunite.com. So there you go. Right. Right, welcome back to the stream. Just had to have a quick break and make sure the batteries were working in the mic packs and all of that goodness. So I think we're technically sorted now. So if you've just joined us for today's live stream, kia ora, welcome. I'm Monique Bradley. This is a Guide to Better Living special. It's called Guide to Better Wellness. Today we're talking about how to reconfigure your brain, how to give your brain some love, and your brain and your heart some love through conscious meditation practice, self-hypnosis, mindfulness, and all that good stuff that we need as busy humans, business owners, entrepreneurs. We're overstimulated, we're hyper-driven, and sometimes our best productivity comes from actually slowing the pace. And to help me facilitate that conversation, or open up the space for that conversation, is this gorgeous goddess over to my left, to your right. This is Carmelle Riley. Kia ora to you. Welcome to the studio.
Kia ora, Monique.
We've been talking about the importance of brain waves, a bit of the science, but also a little bit of the woo-woo. So we're moving into this wonderful paradigm of where sort of the spirituality side, the quantum world, I guess you could say, is mixing together now with science. It's a whole science of its own. People are now applying those laws, those universal laws, into things like hypnosis, understanding what brainwaves do, understanding that a brainwave is an energy of its own, understanding that, you know, if you looked at your hand under a high-powered microscope, you'd see all those, you know, protons, neutrons, electrons all buzzing around. For some people, and I hate to say it, but it's a good joke, morons buzzing around. No, I'm joking, because I love everybody equally. But we are sort of buzzing all the time, and meditation and mindfulness is a great way to calm that buzzing and kind of reconnect everything. If you had one big one big tip that you could give to people about transforming their lives using the power of the mind and the heart, because I know that's kind of your platform, what would that be?
Take some moments every day where you celebrate who you really are and connect in with that non-physical force, because even we go into quantum physics, even the tiniest molecules of matter are still 99, the quarks and the gluons, if people want a name for them, they're 99.99999% space. So we're more space, and we're more invisible space at our core than we are physicality.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's big.
And that space is programmable, which is why we've filled it with every single program that we've borrowed from our family, from our parents, from our schools, from our teachers. I mean, who hasn't got an experience from school where they've taken something about themselves and said, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm really bad at this, I'm dumb, I'm so dumb.
And there's a lot of papers and a lot of professors, university professors who are now talking about the impact of our genetics and the stories that come through our genealogy, as an example, that are wrapped up in our DNA and are affecting our belief systems, are affecting our behaviours. How do you buy into that as a belief system of its own?
Absolutely, but I guess I'd just say it's all completely plastic. It's changeable, and I think I'm just trying to remember his name. It's Daniel Amen. He's proven with 83,000 brain scans how plastic the brain is. So any thought that you think about yourself, and most of them are limiting, is changeable, and that is kind of cool, because you do not have to be the same Monique that you were a day ago, and you know this. 20
well, I'm a
years
Gemini,
ago.
so every single day is quite different for me. Yeah, every minute.
But we do not have to be these thick labels that we apply. I'm old, I'm fat, I'm not a good, I'm not a good person, which is where most people are at. They're all constantly telling themselves what they're not. So we don't have to accept those. And we have all the genetics, we have all the machinery, I guess, inside ourselves. All of the neurocircuitry, all of the cellular expression that will enable us to change if we choose it, and it's a choice. You've got to remember that. We have free will on whether we want to be the small version of ourselves, the program version, or really as big as we want to be.
I want to be big. I feel like I was born to be a big personality, so I'm working my darndest to embrace that every day.
Well, you could go and do one of those photos that actually, I've forgotten the name again,
I know
the photography of your aura.
Yeah.
And when you see that, not only just the colour, but just how big it is, you realise that around you is this bioelectrical field of sizzling energy, and what is crammed into the body is just a very small portion.
So true,
space.
so true.
Yeah.
So I want to dive into another part of your mind on another slightly different topic, but I think still very important, especially with the month we have ahead. So I read somewhere a great quote that, we're 60 or 70% water. So we are literally just cucumbers with more anxiety. That's what the quote said, which I found funny. And you talked before about the fact that we are more space than physical matter. So of course, if we are more water, of course, we're like the ocean, going to be affected by the position of the sun and the moon. And I know a lot of people, when I mention the word astrology, I don't believe it. It's not science. It doesn't matter. But it seems to affect the planet. And I know moving forward, we have astrologically, because it is a passion of mine, we've got a pretty big month ahead. And you mentioned before about your connection to cosmology. How is cosmology different than what most people would understand as astrology? What's the difference in terms?
I think it's just, it celebrates the divine knowledge, because if you think about astrology, it is to the mind as astronomy is to the brain. And about 3,000 years ago, when Ptolemy mapped this physical skies, he was amazing, absolutely amazing astronomer, astrologer. So the two branches, the mind and the brain were together. Astrology and astronomy were together. The astronomers stayed outside looking at the sky, and the astrologers went inside and started doing calculations and started observing people.
Oh, so it's like the
science.
Left and right
Astrology
brain.
is science.
Wow.
Astrology is a 3,000 plus year science. And what it deals with is the quality of starlight, the quality of sunlight, and our planet orbits the sun, and the quality of moonlight. So those three characteristics are the basis of what we say as a chart.
And they would all affect the way we feel. Because if I'm thinking through winter as an example, when sunlight is limited and we have a higher level of SADS, seasonal affective disorder, I believe it is. So people feel down because they don't get the same amount of sunlight.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever heard that explained that way.
Well, and just to go a little bit further, the reason why I say cosmology is because it acknowledges your place on the earth, and you do have to understand that. So most people know their sun sign. That is the position of the sun in the sky when they were born, and there are 30 days for that period, and that. Well, the sign that they think that they are is the star realm where the sun was situated. I know that sounds quite complicated.
No, with you.
But it's most of it's calculated on the northern hemisphere. So most astrologers are northern hemisphere. The main system of Placidus that we use is based on the northern view of the sky. So down here, Aotearoa, we're the opposite. So when the zodiac starts in the northern hemisphere, which is the 21st of March, okay, it's spring. It's autumn here. So we're actually naturally bipolar. We have both.
Wow.
We have both the spring that starts as well as autumn. So you actually have to know the whole system before you can really start to understand.
Picture, yeah.
And that's what I love. There have been so many, mostly men, who have gone out to prove that astrology is not true and it doesn't work. When they find out the whole system and how it's the whole sky and it's the Earth's position in relation to the whole sky and it's the seasons and it's all of the objects behind the sun and the moon, all the stars, it's very difficult for them to continue to say that astrology doesn't have any sense at all, because they'll find that there's such a big system, and when you know it, you start to see that it's just really about seasons, and it's really just about the cycling of these big movements of the planets.
And of course, Te Ao Māori has a big lean on that belief system or understanding, or that science. In fact, embracing Matariki as our new year is an example, time for where you go and you start to plant the kumara, that sort of thing. We are based very much on that. And when I've heard you talk, I've heard you talking deeply. And I say deeply because I see this connection with you and the sort of Māori cosmology side of things. I've never heard anybody talk about that in the same way that you have. So how did that happen for you? How did you dive into the Māori sort of astrological world?
It's actually my Hawaiian side.
Oh, we'll get
because, well, we have a name, it's Malanatanga, which is Malanatana, which actually means Maramatanga or moon law. So that's probably where it comes from. But it's Māori Pacific. We navigated the Pacific with the stars. So you really had to be on your game in terms of knowing the positions, because otherwise you are not going to get to another island. And so this is not a system like I know a fraction of what my forebears knew and a fraction of what our forebears knew, because I know your ancestors came from Tahiti down through and landed on Waido Bay using that system of cosmology, knowing the stars. Like, you had to get them right. You had to I've heard Jack Thatcher talk about lining up the stars, because otherwise you would get to Rarotonga as opposed to Tahiti. So that's how critical it kind of is. So it's taking that and then applying it for how it's going to work in the modern age, which is most people want to know about their life partner.
Yeah. How much money they're going to make.
How much money they're going to make.
What career.
how their children are going to fare, or, you know, so you can apply some of those characteristics for just life as opposed to navigating the Pacific or growing your kumara, because they're not activities that we really do these days. Maybe matariki, but see, and again, this is another thing that you have to know, like this is the thing about cosmology, is it depends where you are on the earth. Like the difference between Auckland and the far Murihiku in terms of what you see in the sky is very, very, very different because of the latitude difference. So you have to actually know where you are, and you have to know the traditions of where you are, and you have to assimilate your family stories to actually put it all together.
Wow.
But I just love it because it makes me kind of think about a bit differently about life on Earth, and it brings in the sense of, you know, that things are not solid, that they're mystical, that I'm having a spiritual experience in a physical body, and vice versa. It just gives more flavour. It's fun.
Fun.
You hear that a lot. I say that all the time.
You do say that a lot. I've noticed, which is fantastic. So I guess in summing that up, you can.
This is fun.
Yeah, I know. This is all fun. What a way to spend an afternoon. I guess my final question around that then is, I know moving into October, for those who love astrology like I do, they'll know we're just coming out of a Mercury retrograde, which means everything's been a bit slow. People have had miscommunications. It's a time for reviewing things that aren't necessarily working for them. We're coming out of multiple eclipses this month, in fact, or retrogrades, a few things coming up. We've got a couple of eclipses coming up. How are all the aspects, and I'm not expecting you to know every single aspect, likely to affect us collectively this month? What can we expect?
So I've got one word, because I do like behind the complex to make it simple. So the next month is going to be intense.
Oh.
So if you thought last month
Bojangles.
was intense, it's going to get more intense. And probably there's a couple of things. There's a square of Uranus. New Zealand's chart is actually ruled by Uranus. And I said it deliberately in that way.
Thank you.
Uranus and Aquarius. So we have a lot of that influence here. It's why we have earthquakes. Okay, it's not because of the moon. Right. It's because Uranus rules earth events, and we have the rūmuku, the earthquakes. So there's a square with Saturn, and that is going to be intense. And we also have the Mars retrograde. Mars is the planet that actually rules action, rules war, rules sex drive. It rules everything that makes you get up and go. Yeah. That's why Aries are always so passionate in moving us forward, the rest of the crowd. So yeah, it's going to be intense.
So with that retrograde, I should say, phase, if Mars is going retrograde, if that's the driver, does that mean we're going to get a reversal of that driver, do you think? Or is it just going to heighten everything?
It's going to heighten, but with a retrograde, it's the Earth becomes station with the planet, because we're all the planets are doing different orbits. So when we catch up, it just means that we're stationed right next to that planet, and then it appears as if they're moving backwards, but they're really we've just caught them up. So what that will do is basically cause people, if you're looking, otherwise life just presents events and you think, it's just like a tough month or for whatever reason. But this is even more reason to just have these quiet moments, because when you have a quiet moment, it doesn't matter how much chaos is around you. You can actually be the shift point for changing the way other people feel you. Come into your heart more. So
it's more about state management, you think, this month?
Yeah, I think it's a bit about state management, and also maybe just taking some more time to observe. And we do need to observe how we feel, just as humans, because we're so often responding to stimuli. Even the planetary stimuli, we're responding to that, because it does depend on your particular chart as to how all this will affect you. But you can choose to be still. You can choose to go out and look at the stars. You can choose to observe, and you can choose to exert a positive influence, which is why I probably encourage so much meditation and self-hypnosis, so that you can actually, be a big part of this moving energy of soup, this soup-like energy. You can actually have a positive effect on it.
I love it. I love it. I've learned
That was
so
so
much.
deep.
We went right down that rabbit hole. Look, I have loved every delicious moment of this chat. Thank you so much for coming to the studio today.
Thank you for
and it's
having
nice.
me.
It's nice to be able to play in this space. And talk about a bigger topic that we don't necessarily have time to do in the constraints of a 26-minute television show. So thank you for showing up and bringing your magic with you and being able to, I guess, demystify what some people would see as being woo-woo into a real life science-based, calculated by scientists.
A little bit of
world.
calibration.
Yeah, and a little bit of calibration and that beautiful mix of the quantum world and this
The physical world.
Yeah, thank you so much, because I know there are so many people who ask me about those sorts of things all the time. So thank you for demystifying that and speaking in real people terms. I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Monique. It's just been such a privilege for me to come here and have such a deep conversation.
We went deep.
And so fast.
It was beautiful.
Like you have amazing knowledge that just,
I'm just,
have you thought about becoming an astrologer?
Oh, thanks. Oh, I've considered it. And if you want to find out more about this amazing work that Carmelle does, and I have seen some of this work firsthand, I've seen it in videos, seeing the incredible work she does to tap into your higher self, the self that has all the knowledge. Reach out, get in touch. You can head to her website, manifestersunite.com. Sign up for her free download, sign up for her alerts, her newsletter, because if you really are ready to connect with yourself and create a deeper life of purpose, of meaning, tap into the you that you really are, this is a really good way to do it. Carmelle, thank you once again. Lovely to have you here, and wishing you all the best for your book launch and the launch of your course. Yay! I wish we had a big studio audience applauding you.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you very much.
It's lovely being here. Lovely being with your audience.
Yeah, kia ora to everybody.